So wait, did I just get the greatest sports Rolex ever released? Is that what this is? Shit. This video is brought to you by Sonor Watches. It's a brand out of Sweden that specialize in rectangular watches. If you need something classy, dressy, and sophisticated, and you don't want to drop crazy money on a JLC Reverso or a Cartier tank, simple, stylish, and above all, very affordable. Check them out. sonorwatches.com. So I'm in Bologna, Italy, which is about 2 hours from here, and I'm there to pick up a watch for a friend. This is a guy who bought a James Cameron a few years ago. He asked me to help him find a nice one. Found him a great one. He was very, very happy. However, he lives in Los Angeles, and unfortunately his house was one of those houses that burnt down in the LA fires last year. So he lost the watch and all his other watches in his collection, and probably a lot more stuff than just that. But recently he reached out to me asking me, could I get him an SD43, the Sea Dweller with the red line. He did the same again. He's like, hey, I'll wire you the cash. Go source me a beautiful one in great condition. Well, the best one I found was in Bologna. So I jumped on a train. I figured I'd make a day out of it and do a live stream on the channel from down in Bologna, something new. But on that trip, I wore my gold bluesy, my solid gold 16618 LB. And when I walked into the store to pick up the SD43, they noticed this thing on my wrist, and I got the distinct feeling that maybe they had a customer looking for one, because they started asking about it and seeing if I was interested in shifting the watch. Now, that had not occurred to me. I absolutely adore that watch, but they were ready to make me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I decided to make the leap from the 5-digit 1993 gold Submariner with the blue dial and bezel to this 2018 GMT Master 2 in solid gold. I figured at that point I had enjoyed the Submariner for a few years already. It was time to move on to something new, and someone else can enjoy that watch now. And I was going from a 5-digit gold Rolex to a 6-digit one. There are a lot of upgrades. The clasp is much more advanced. It's slightly larger as a watch, which is better for my wrist. It's also a GMT. It's got the GMT function. It's a much newer watch, like about a quarter of a century newer, a full box and card and everything, which the sub admittedly did not have. It had the service papers from Rolex, but it didn't have anything else. And being a 6-digit model, of course, it's a bit more substantial on the wrist with the super case design, and it just works better on my big meat hooks. As much as I love the bluesy, there were some days when I looked down at it and thought, is it a little small? So it was an exciting day, and I walked out of that store with 2 watches instead of one. Complete surprise, but I just went for it. Life is short, right? But it wasn't until afterwards that it really began to sink in why this watch is amazing. There were a few realizations I had personally, and on top of that, a few things I discovered about this watch that are really special. The first and most glaringly obvious thing is that it is the gold version of my favorite Rolex. I've always talked about the 116710 LN with the fully black bezel, the one that people call the Black Beauty or the Espresso or the All Black. I've always said that that is maybe the perfect Rolex, and I've raved about that watch now for years. It's probably my favorite alongside the Yachtmaster 40 in rhodium. And in fact, a viewer, if you look right behind me, sent me a pencil sketch of exactly that watch. That's the 116710 LN Black Beauty. I also have a Rolex clock in the other room on the wall there, and it is exactly the same model with the green GMT hand and GMT Master writing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the 116710 LN, and I always will be. That watch was discontinued in 2019. When people were going crazy for the Pepsi and the Batman at the time, and they were ignoring the all black. When it was finally discontinued, people started looking at it and saying, Did we miss something great? And I think its performance in the market since then has proven that, yes, it was an overlooked gem in the entire Rolex catalog. Think about the new Bruce Wayne. It's essentially the same watch. And it's a really, really popular watch. That's probably the most popular watch in the whole Rolex catalog right now. So it just goes to show the Black Beauty, the Espresso, whatever you want to call it, is a timeless classic. So when you think about it, as a fan of that watch and having owned a few of them at this point, isn't it perfect that I picked up the gold version? It has the green GMT hand, the green writing on the dial, and the all black bezel. It's just in gold. This is the big daddy version of the Black Beauty. So right there, I mean, I don't need to go any farther. There are some amazing things I'm going to mention in a moment. But even if I didn't mention them, you can see why this is the perfect watch for me. One thing you have to realize about this exact watch is it is the first of firsts in many things in the Rolex catalog. The 5-digit Rolex watches are timeless classics. We love the Submariner, the old GMTs, the 16710s, etc. And when we think of 6-digit Rolex, we think of them as roughly from 2010 on, right? That's when the 5-digit stuff started being discontinued and the introduction of the 6-digit. But we're actually a little bit off there. Yes, with the Submariner, that's when those changes were made. But as many of you know, that wasn't the first time the world saw a super case watch with a ceramic bezel and the maxi dial. Truthfully, the Submariner Kermit in 2007 had the maxi dial, so that was a kind of a transitional one. But we saw all those other features in the GMT line. And it all started in 2007 with the 116710 LN Black Beauty GMT Master 2, right? Actually wrong. The super case, maxi dial, ceramic bezel, milled adjustable clasp Rolex was introduced in 2005 in 2 solid gold models. One with a black bezel and a kind of matte green dial, and this one. In very typical Rolex style, they tend to put out brand new creations in a kind of an unattainable material at first with a very, very high price tag. It's not until a few years later that they might put it out in steel. That's a very typical thing they do. They did it with the GMT Pepsi. First came the white gold version. It wasn't until 2018 that they actually brought out the steel one that now everybody has been after ever since. So they dangle the carrot in front of everyone before they give us a steel, more attainable, more affordable, let's face it, option. So think of it. In 2005, no one had ever seen the super case, the maxi dial, the ceramic bezel, the milled clasp with the easy link adjustment. These were all brand new things that were all released at the same time in one watch. It must have looked so strange to people at the time. So this watch broke through everything that everyone knew about Rolex sports models in 2005. It was an extremely new thing to see, and it introduced a form of sports Rolex that we're all so used to now all these years later. That new form with the super case started here. Now, this is not a 2005 watch. The card on this one is 2018. So it's one of probably the last batch before it was discontinued in 2019. The next thing I love about this watch is that it has never been polished. Now, we know that collectors normally prefer an unpolished watch. That way you're getting all the real edges and so on. Nothing's been softened off. But that especially applies when it comes to gold, because to polish steel is one thing. Polishing gold is a different thing. You're losing some of that precious material. It's also very soft in comparison to steel, and it can be so easily over polished. So to get an unpolished watch in almost immaculate condition just made it that bit more special. There are the various small scuffs around the PCLs and so on. Those things are to be expected, but essentially you can't really see them. At the same time of releasing this, they released the exact same watch with a matte green dial. And if you look on the market, the one with the green dial fetches a little bit more out there than this one does. But this one has a very unique thing about it that the green dial one does not. And it's not something I noticed for days after buying the watch. If you look at the date wheel on the green dial version, the numbers are in black, just like pretty much every other Rolex model. It's black numerals against a white background. But rather than just making this watch the black dial version and making it that little bit plainer than the green, what Rolex did is they reversed them. The dial is black, but if you look closely at the numerals, they're actually green. That is an extremely rare thing. There are very, very few ever made with green numerals on the calendar ring. The only one I was able to find, and you guys can let me know in the comments if you know of any others, is a special off-catalog day date with a pave dial and green emeralds in the bezel. As far as I know, that's the only other Rolex ever made that has a green calendar wheel. Now, of course, once I discovered this, I had to go read everything I could possibly find on the internet about this thing. I just never knew that this was the case on this watch. So in the end, all of these things coming together, both the obvious things and the hidden things, have just amounted to me figuring out that this watch was out there waiting for me. And once again, as has happened many other times in the watch collecting game for me, you don't find the watch finds you. I can think of many other examples, but the most glaring one was the Speedy 145.022 with the 1450 bracelet and the 808 end links. When I bought that watch, I didn't know what I was getting. I'm not sure the store knew what they had either. All I knew was this thing was gorgeous. It was so much nicer than other Speedies I had owned. It wasn't until I did the investigating later on that I realized I had a rare gem on my wrist. It's something that can happen with watches, guys. Sometimes the watch finds its way to you, you take the plunge, and you discover later why your instincts were setting you on the right path. It's an amazing thing when it happens. So that's it, guys. That's my story about this watch. I didn't talk about other specs like the size of the bracelet and the case because you all know that stuff because it's basically the same as all other GMT masters out there. The only thing that sets it apart, of course, is its weight because it is solid yellow gold. I do wonder about the new one on the Jubilee. As pretty as that watch is, how does the head feel on the watch? Because this is quite a top-heavy watch. You can feel that big chunk of gold on top. And with the Oyster bracelet that's more robust than the Jubilee, it's kind of, struggling to hold it down on my wrist. I can imagine with the Jubilee, unless you wear it really tight, then it might flop around a lot. But I haven't tried on that watch, so that's not confirmed. If any of you have thoughts on the balance and the weight and so on, maybe some of you guys out there have the solid gold latest version or one of the other ones, the white gold Pepsi or something like that. Stick it down there in the comments. Guys, give me a like for the video. I never asked for that, but right now I'm combating trolls and haters and the algorithm itself. So if you did enjoy the video and some of the shots of the nice watch, be sure to give me that thumbs up right down there so I can fight the powers that be. All right, guys, take it easy. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, cheers.